Hello everyone, welcome to another one of these update videos. I wanted to make a video a little bit earlier this week, but unfortunately only now I received my new computer setup, and this is the first video I'm making on this new setup, so we'll see how well it will go. I have a lot of good news to talk to you about, and we're gonna get to them just in a second. Basically, Russia has been experiencing a lot of setbacks lately, and they are very frustrated, and they're taking out that frustration by missile striking a lot of the civilian areas that are beyond the fighting lines. They are not fighting the Ukrainian army, they are fighting the civil population, women, children, elderly, and the people that have no relationship to fighting. They don't pose any military threat to the Ukraine, but this is the pure terrorist activity that Russia is doing. So I want to ask for a moment of silence just so we pay respects to some of these people that have lost their lives for no reason beyond the imperial ambitions of Russia. Thank you so much. With this said, let's start getting to the business. So the war has changed a little bit. The HIMARS changed everything, and we talked a little bit in the past parts that Kharkiv is now basically the limiting line, right? No side can really advance. And what was really outlining in the past couple of days as something that I refer to as Spetsnaz War. Basically, it is Russian Spetsnaz versus Ukrainian special forces. It is now basically Ukrainian special forces try to infiltrate the Russian territory and destroy and capture their troops, whereas Russian special forces try to infiltrate the Ukrainian side and try to see if they can cause some damage. So it seems that both sides are kind of agreeing that none of them had the chance to advance, so they are trying to basically win it, well, not win it, but cause damage to the other side. And this actually has been also happening on the east side. Remember last time I told you that it seemed to me that there was not this pause ended. So a lot of the pro-Ukrainian analysts, they were saying that there is no military pause. However, in the recent videos, there has been some videos appearing from the people from the front line, and they've been describing what kind of warfare is happening right now. And what they've been describing is basically that it is a lot of this also semi-Spetsnaz, because there is not that many special forces that is happening, but they do note that there is a very high activity of these Spetsnaz forces that are in the area. So as I was expecting, and what was the neutral analysts were saying, that this is more of a probing warfare. So while Russia does continue shelling all over the front line of Ukraine, right, it is overall still very much fighting on the ground. But importantly about shelling, here we can see the biggest difference what the HIMARS system have caused. Because people on the east front, on the Ukraine, they are saying that most probably because of the HIMARS system, but the number of shelling and like the frequency of shelling has dropped almost by 2/3. So that is impressive. So more than halved. That is really, really impressive. And this is obviously, there's probably going to be an uptick once the Russia finally solidifies some kind of a new ways of delivering ammunition to the front lines. So, but it will never be as big as it was before. So that is definitely good news. And we need to say that it is actually now being brought to question, right? I say that Russia is probing in all of these directions, right? I was telling you about this and so on. They want to go here, 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 and so on. I've been telling you for this couple of weeks now, right after basically Lysychansk have fallen. But the point is, they still haven't found the direction that they can advance to. It's been more than 18, I think it's 19 days now that the Lysychansk has been taken. So Russia is saying that they're recuperating the strengths of their forces. But my question is, for how long? So it's not completely clear if Russia will be able to start advancing. A lot of the analysts saying that maybe Russians would still have forces in this area to take maybe smaller towns, like maybe Seversk, couple of these towns, maybe Krasnohora, maybe siege Bakhmut, maybe siege Slovyansk. But a lot of them are saying that's about it, right? A lot of those analysts are saying that without major change, Russia is going to get stuck and they will never have the forces. We also know that a lot of these forces that were fighting here, especially on the eastern side, are now being taken out to the Russian territory. And I'm going to talk about why quite soon. But first reason is very obvious, is because they have been receiving heavy casualties during the fighting. And that is something. And second reason why is exactly what I explained to you last time, right? Remember I told you that Russia is using the train lines from the Crimea to supply its southern group, right? Because one would think if the forces are here, they can just, go and reinforce somewhere here if they need to. But what is actually happening, we are getting actual reports that groups of Russian soldiers are actually taking out to the Russian territory, and then are driven to Crimea from there. And that is definitely showing. Why is that? Well, because there is some kind of train connection, so there is some kind of logistical line. So actually getting from this part to the south is actually more problematic for the Russians than to take a long way around. And that was another thing that reinforced what analysts were saying about the importance of the Kerch Bridge and how important it is to sustain the whole southern grouping. But what we see so far on the east is that Ukrainians have been happily solidifying the lines. I've been receiving a lot of really positive reports. There has been fighting around Bilohorivka, and somewhere around this area, Ukrainians, and again, bear with me, this is not a full offensive by the Russians, but they were able to kick the Russians back away and even retake some of the villages. So there has been definitely a positive movement on the ground, and Ukrainians are saying that finally a lot of these forces that were overstretched into this pocket that was here, they were fighting in this pocket for basically months without end. And now that they've solidified and shortened the defense line, they actually can go and rotate and relax. So a lot of these veteran fighters that were on the front lines for so long are now going to the rotation back to Ukraine mainland essentially. So this is good. Ukraine is recovering. Really good news. Important situation happened also around Vuhledar. Here Ukrainians also advanced and also captured a couple of the villages, just to make you know, just a quick note. So we know that in the recent days, Nikopol, this city here, got artillery strike heavily, time and time again. Ukraine responded by destroying some of the forces of Russians here, and they've been using actually suicide drones to do that, because there is a nuclear power plant in the city of Energotar, and to basically hit the Russian forces without the damage to any kind of facilities that are relevant for the performance of the nuclear plant, because it is still supplying, surprisingly, electricity to the Ukraine mainland, as silly as it sounds. So Ukrainians are using suicide drones here, which is really cool. Then if we go to the Kherson Oblast, so there has been very important things happening here. So we know that Ukraine is definitely planning to advance to this Kherson Oblast. And they just did the major push. So the Antonov Bridge, remember I told you there are two bridges that are connecting two parts of the river here. And this bridge is essentially has been taken out, right? There has been strikes, and now pretty much no heavy machinery or even loaded trucks can advance through it. And in Kherson, there is no specialist that can repair the bridge. And even if the specialist will be repairing the bridge, Ukraine can just strike again. So the bridge is pretty much gone. And this leaves only this part here. And this is not a bridge, this is a dam. So it cannot be destroyed. But again, if you have only essentially one road to advance to this whole part, to this whole beachhead, that is basically a situation where your every movement is just going to get noticed, and then you're just going to get striked by the precision missile strikes. So this is a devastating blow to the Russians, and Ukrainians, beyond striking the bridge, have also struck some really good luck and destroyed a lot of anti-air systems around this area. They have been targeting, so after now we have less of the major stockpiles of ammunition destroyed. Now Ukraine starting to destroy the anti-air systems, and as anti-air systems are going down, there is now reports that Ukrainian aviation is now flying all over this area and striking targets inside of this area. So there is definitely this progress, right? We see that the Russians in this area are being prepared, they're being softened. So everything is basically now hanging, and it seems that there are things to come, because right now they have only one way to get to this part of the river. And one might say, well, they're just going to throw, like, you know, this pontoon bridge all over the river. The problem of this is that the scale of this doesn't really show. In some areas, the river here is as wide as like 700, 800 meters easily, or even some places over a kilometer. It's a huge river. Like, I dare you to go to Google Views, open this area, open the bridge, and just look how wide this river is. Making a pontoon bridge is nearly impossible. It needs to be really big, it requires a lot of engineering works, and then nothing basically stops the Ukrainian side from striking it also. So we can definitely say that the only way in is this. And we'll see how well Ukraine is going to try to control it. But this is really bad news for the Russians. So, oof. And obviously losing Kherson will be a devastating blow to any kind of potential morale that Russians still had. But importantly, I wanted to address one of the things that were kind of in the air. While I'm saying that the aggression, not the aggression, but the engagement and the attack of Ukraine is going to come, that does not mean that the war will be over quickly. We need to keep in mind that while this part of Kherson area is very much exposed for the Russians, it's very hard for them to defend it. While they can try, because they can do that, it is really hard for them to defend it. But we must understand that taking this part does not win the war for Ukrainians. It's going to be still a slog, and it's going to be really, really long campaign. So we must prepare ourselves that this can go for a long time. And in that sense, I want to quote Jens Stoltenberg, the General Secretary of NATO, that said that at this point we need to suck it up. We need to understand that we as Europeans, we pay for this war as well. We pay by having higher prices. We pay by sending some of our support to Ukraine, whether financial aid or some kind of humanitarian aid, and obviously the military aid, because military is very expensive. And we need to understand that while we're paying for it from our pocket, it still can be counted as money. No amount of money can essentially put the price on having our kids killed by the Russian missiles. And we don't want that, right? So if we give up Ukraine now, at some point, those missiles might as well struck our own cities. And I think most of the people understand it. It's just sometimes we forget about it because of the kind of grinding nature and the long-term nature. But I want to keep your head leveled and keep you up to date that we need to hold on and continue supporting Ukraine. But I want to talk about what the support for Ukraine was. So we've seen like big notifications about that. Hey, Ukraine got only this amount of weapons. Hey, Ukraine got only this amount of weapons. And I myself was very critical about this. However, what I did not understand was that the NATO countries, they didn't send just the weapons themselves. They actually send them as a weapons complex, like a full system. So if they're sending, for example, the howitzers, they would also send in at the same time the anti-artillery radars. So that would allow for counter-battery fire to be more effective. So even if it was just 100 howitzers, those 100 howitzers with those advanced detection capabilities became a lot more powerful. We get HIMARS system, but it's not only HIMARS systems that are being sent. It's also a proper optimized intelligence systems and information delivery systems that are being sent to Ukraine to optimize communication. So those HIMARS can strike the targets in the precisely that part of the country where it's relevant and as soon as possible. And we know that there has been more HIMARS that are going to be sent to Ukraine, so a lot of these long-range missile systems. And while there has been talks about the 300-kilometer range missiles, I don't think that they will be sent before Ukraine takes Kherson. I think Kherson Oblast right now is basically being set up as a testing ground, right? If Ukraine can take this, then they're going to get more weapons and more support because A, everyone likes winners, and B, that's kind of the proof of concept that a lot of people will see it as, because that will be, if Kherson Oblast is taken, that is a clear and undeniable military victory for the Ukrainians. And while we have the victory from the first part of the war, this is now a victory in the second part of the war, which is very important, very much different. What is important that what Mr. Mark Milley, General Mark Milley, outlined from the U.S., he said basically that more capacity of more worrying is the use and the frequency and capacity and use of missiles rather than the number of HIMARS platforms that Ukraine has. So what he's saying basically is that the bottleneck seemingly for using the HIMARS systems is not really the how many of those systems are available on the Ukrainian side, because it seems like maybe 20, 30 will be completely enough. It's how fast the missiles themselves that need to be shot can get into the battlefield, can get first into Ukraine, and then from Ukraine towards the battlefield, and from the battlefield region to the precise firing locations and into the HIMARS. So I believe that there might be more effort put into doing a lot of more logistical planning, and that is really good. And it's important to understand that while we're not seeing those numbers of HIMARS system increasing exponentially to 50, 60, 100 maybe, that a lot of people would notice, it is not the bottleneck. So keep that in mind. And importantly, even talking about the 300 kilometers missiles, the Russian fleet that was in port of Sevastopol has actually scooted away all the way back to Novorossiysk. So we can say that Ukraine pretty much won the naval battle without having any navy of this war, surprising as that is. So with this said, I am really happy to say that on all of these warring lines, while we are still in this semi-pause where Russia is trying to regroup their forces, trying to find which directions they can protect and how to deal with the Kherson situation, Ukrainians are reporting that they are finally having significant success in their counter-battery fires. They're destroying Russian positions, not only by the HIMARS system, but also by the just general artillery, because they're getting a lot more these mobile artillery such as Caesars or Panzer Howitzers 2000s or Archers from Sweden and so on. So we're seeing that Ukraine's quality of fighting is increasing significantly. And in this war, I believe we are really at the breaking point already. We can see that the Russian army has maybe some power still in it. They can still throw a lot of bodies at the eastern side, or even maybe support Kherson to prevent the aggression, or even maybe throw randomly towards Zaporizhia, just randomly group up a lot of people here and just go and siege Zaporizhia for no reason. They can't do that. They have a lot of bodies and they don't care about them. But we definitely, and a lot of the analysts are saying this, that it seems that Russia is hitting the plateau. And that's why they're so active right now in their political rhetoric. That's why they're trying to have negotiations and use any kind of platform like, grain, gas, anything, just so we can start now that they're starting basically to talk about negotiations again. Let's sit down on the table, around the table and talk, right? If the Russians would have the power to take and go further, why would they ever need to talk? Right? Why would you talk with someone that you can just win? And this is the point. So thank you so much for listening. I will make more videos this week, and I hope to release the Russia is a fascist state video this week. And see you next time when we find out more news about how really poorly Russians are doing.